Ready? And we're back. We're going to do another podcast. I hope you're excited as I am. We're going to talk about CrossFit. CrossFit. A lot of people have been asking me a lot of questions since it has been a little over a year since we dumped our affiliate, how things are going. We had a competition recently, ran into some other affiliate members, people that own gyms, things like that. That I haven't seen in a while, and they were kind of looking for updates on shit like that, which is kind of cool. So we got in some really good conversation, and all of them were very positive. I don't think there was a lot of negative talk there. If you follow my Instagram, you probably see a couple of funny jabs from time to time from me for CrossFit. But, you know, at the end of the day, if you really sit down and talk with me, I have just relegated CrossFit into a sport section of my life. To me, it is not as written. It's not a good idea as a strength and conditioning protocol for your generalist athlete anymore. I believe at one point it was, and I still think that when properly administered, it can be, because there's coming from CrossFit itself, there's no real dictation as to how you're supposed to perform it. You know, Glassman was really good about that. You know, I don't really care for the new regime, but there was one part there where I remember, and the thing that actually drew me to it was like, you know, we're not going to really get too involved with how you run your business. You know, we want you guys to be independent entrepreneurs, independent coaches. We just, want to help facilitate that. And that interested me in the beginning. And I think that ended up getting bastardized over time. But, and I think that's what brought us to this conversation today. That kind of loose control over time, I think is what is causing a big degradation in the CrossFit cult following, I guess you could say. And you're looking at affiliates dropping off. You're looking at this lowest year of attendance in the open, different shit like that. And I think what it comes down to is, they're putting a lot of emphasis on whether you like it or not. Don't care what side of the fence you're on. This is my opinion. It's my show. I think they put a little too much emphasis on the sports side of it. I think you have a lot of young guys coming in, starting businesses, and they've only had their business for 3 to 5 years, and that's all they've really seen is that sports side of it. So they try to replicate that kind of programming, that sports side of programming, and they try to run that for their members and then wonder why they're fucking constantly dealing with attrition and injury rates and different things like that. I can go into a million examples as to why I think these things. I'm just not going to get into all of that today. But my point would be, you've got to stop programming. Hopefully you are programming. Hopefully you have programming for your gym that has some consistency to it. It has some type of goal for your members, not for you. Goal for your members as to what's going to make your members better. And if you're not programming with goals in mind and different milestones in mind for your members' achievements, you're not programming. You're just coming in and throwing workouts on the board, which I have seen a lot of affiliates do. I see members do it from time to time. They just throw out cherry picky shit on a board because that's what's going to make them tired, and they think that they're getting a good workout. Don't program to your 1%, right? So if you have a group style gym and you're programming for that gym, and your whole fucking goal is to make those people's lives better, make them stronger, healthier, more capable people, but you're programming work that is at such a high level because you're trying to appease the 2 or 3 or the 1 or 2 CrossFitters in your gym that can actually do a muscle up, and the rest of them can't even do a fucking regular pull up, you're really missing the mark. There's a lot of work that needs to be done as far as that goes, as far as your general programming goes. And it's on you as the gym owner to make those decisions. But I feel like it's kind of misinterpreted through the CrossFit realm that, we're supposed to program high and then hope that your membership rises to the challenge. That ain't the way it works, guys. I think what I've seen over the last 13 years, when you program high like that, you have a large majority of your membership that know they're never going to achieve that level, so they're going to find a scaled level, and they end up coming in and doing steady state cardio at a highly modified level that is not really good for their health and well-being. As a matter of fact, it fucks up their confidence. They realize they're never going to be able to move to a new bar, and you as a coach are really only focusing on the 1 or 2% in your gym anyway, and they can fucking see that, and they can sense that. I don't feel like we've ever had our programming that way, but I saw a lot of these holes and a lot of these flaws early on. So our programming, even when we were a CrossFit affiliate, took a lot of time and attention to detail. And I would say that, we had it more often than not over the last 10 years when people would come to CrossFit Iron Legion, when it was CrossFit Iron Legion, they left with a different feel, right? They were like, man, that's not like any other CrossFit I've ever done before, because we do take a little bit more of attention to that. But there was always that glaring thing of like, when people are still just trying to overdo or trying to reach for things that they weren't quite ready for, and it causes injury and it causes frustration and it causes attrition. There's a better way to program. And I was trying to wrap my head around it over the last 5-6 years, trying to find a way to do it. And I went out and I started meeting and talking to people that were in similar situations of mine, and have found way more unique ways to program for the generalist athlete. And I keep using the term like generalist athlete because not a lot of people want to go to the fucking games, believe it or not. Not a lot of people want to go compete. They just want to be stronger. They just want to feel better. And those are the people we need to be programming for. But what if you could create a program for your gym that can make your generalist athlete, give them exactly what they need, but also be used as great off-season training for your CrossFit sport athlete, right? What if? So that's what I was seeking for, right? I was looking for that holy grail, that nice mix. And I believe that we've actually, it's never done, right? It's never done. Our programming is always evolving. But I feel like what we've done recently over the last year and a half is created a program in concert with some great minds to develop something that's super approachable by all levels, right? We've evolved our programming style over the last 14 years. I think you have a responsibility as a coach in a program or a programmer to create a program that makes strong and capable people, but it also has longevity, right? And I don't mean not necessarily longevity for your business. Of course, you want to stay in business, right? But longevity for your athletes. How long can they stay training like that? Sport-specific training is very, very fucking hard on the body. Ask anybody doing sport-specific training how their rotators cuffs feel, how their knees feel, those types of things when they're just driving that shit into the dirt and never doing any real off-season style training. You don't see football players and different guys like that. They have an on-season, off-season. Athletes typically have on-season, off-season for that very reason because sport-specific training is hard on the body. When CrossFit with high rotational movements and different things like that, and you're constantly training in that style and that pattern over and over and over and over and over, you're causing the body to break down. You'll get away with it for a few years. You might even get away with it for 6 to 7 years. But at some point, even your best CrossFitter in the gym is going to digress into a point where it's nothing more than steady state cardio for them either. They may be at a high level per se, but they are no longer pushing themselves to a certain point because they're becoming smarter. They know they don't want to get fucking hurt, right? So they're getting to those points where they're starting to back off. That's where a good strength and conditioning program comes into play. So we here at Iron Legion, our strength and conditioning is the foundation of every program that we have. We have sport-specific training. We have powerlifting. We have weightlifting. We have strongman. We have CrossFit now. We have jiu-jitsu. We have all these different spokes on the wheel at Iron Legion that are all the way around. But in the very, very fucking center of that, the core of that is our strength and conditioning program. And that strength and conditioning program is our on-season, off-season program for those athletes, right? So if I have a guy who's really vested in powerlifting, for example, and we're training that particular person for powerlifting, the closer we get to their event, the more sport-specific their training becomes. But should they decide that, hey, man, I'm super fatigued, I'm broken down, I'm not feeling the powerlifting game for a little while, we welcome them back into the strength and conditioning fold. We make them a little bit stronger, a little bit more robust. They take some time off of their sports-specific training and do off-season training. For most coaches out there, real coaches, they understand an off-season and on-season. For some reason, the CrossFit mentality out there is it's always fucking on-season, right? I'm training all year long for the open. No, you're not. That's the most ridiculous way to train, right? So, I'm going to get into the open. But, the sport-specific training is not for longevity. So it has a very pointed and focused purpose, but it has very real limitations on the long-term development of your membership, right? So great coaches cycle athletes in and out. That's my point. Off-season programming should return an athlete to the original foundational pieces of work, right? You should, if we're working high rotational pieces, we're bringing that athlete during off season and we're working on strict, right? Let's take the pull-up, for example. The pull-up is a great example of this, right? I've got a CrossFit athlete, seasoned CrossFit athlete. He's great at butterfly pull-ups, great at muscle-ups, different things like that, but he could be better, right? It's very obvious to a coach who is coaching that particular person. They can't move out of that 10 rep butterfly or that 15 rep butterfly during season, and they just can't seem to move it. So what are they doing? They keep throwing butterfly pull-ups at this guy? No. During off season, they pull him off, they get him on the ground, and they start working pulling exercise, maybe rows, strict heavy rows. We get on the bar, we're working strict good pull-up work, right, during our off season. That way, when we go back to that particular sport and we need to do that butterfly pull-up, now I've increased that 10 rep set to a 20 rep set, right, doing strict work during my off season. So I become a better athlete by far. But what's that do to my generalist athlete that's already training that way? They're not going to a competition anyway. They're just consistently getting better across the board. Great example was this morning. I had a 5-round piece, had a couple things in there, and one of the items that we were doing were 5 pull-ups. The question got raised by one of our old CrossFitters, what style of pull-ups? And I just looked at her blank face, because you've been here for 10 years. You know how this goes. Strict. If it's 5 reps, it's going to mean strict, right? And that's our programming style. And then I went to break it down and explain to her, and I didn't want to seem dismissive to her. So I jumped up on the bar myself, I've been training sport-specific strongman for a while. I haven't done CrossFit in a long time. Jumped up on the bar, cold right out of my truck, not 10 minutes before, ripped off 10 butterfly pull-ups, 15 chest-to-bar pull-ups. Came down off of the bar, not winded, and said the last time I did that was a year ago. I came out of my truck cold, jumped up here, and I did a circus trick for you guys. It's an efficiency circus trick. You're not going to lose that skill set by learning more or developing more strict power, right? So taking the time off on your off season and building, that was my other point, was I do strict pull-ups every fucking day. Every fucking day, it's part of my regimen. Of course, outside of my rest days. But every day, strict pull-ups, strict dips, things like that are always in my regimen. I can jump up to a pull-up bar or a ring muscle-up at any given time, cold, and hit those movements because I know how to use the hip. I know how to use the efficiency movements. I call them circus tricks. You guys in CrossFit call them efficiency movements, right? But I can do them because I've learned them in the past. I know how to do them, but I go back to the foundational well all of the time. Right? I'm going back to that strict piece and working that strict power piece so that when I do need to jump up on there, or if I do decide to jump up there and do that, I can still do that. So my point was made, I would believe, to some of my folks. Others, they want the flashy shit, right? The way I look at something like that, and I see this a lot, especially with CrossFitters. CrossFitters will learn, they will push themselves on the pull-up, right? Everybody wants that first pull-up that comes into your gym. So you have an owner and a coach that they want to give that customer or that member what they want. So they'll cut corners to get it for them. If they need to teach them how to kip and throw their legs around and get that bar, the chin over that bar, they're going to do that, right? Once they start learning how to kip and then they learn how to butterfly or kip, they never go back, right? And poor programming in your gym, you never take them back, right? So you never require them to go back to that strict butterfly. Now they have completely fucked up and jumped the foundational step, and now they're kipping where they have no business kipping. They don't have the upper body strength for it. They're using their whole lower body, just tearing at their rotator cuff over and over and over, trying to get their chin over the bar, right? When all we really needed to do was start from the foundations and the basics, and then try, not enforce and be a dick, but explain why we do it this way. Show what can happen when we learn things the right and correct way. And even my guys that are doing CrossFit, right? And that was the other piece. They get into the kipping pull-up. They get into maybe even they make it to the butterfly, right? But they can't seem to ever increase their reps. And as a matter of fact, they might even start to digress. And they can never get that first real strict pull-up. And how many of you coaches out there have programmed strict pull-ups at your gym after not doing them for a while, and 2/3 of your gym go, I can't do those, but they can do kipping and butterfly pull-ups? That's when you know you have a fucking problem. You have a very serious problem with your program, and it's time to start backing up and really looking at how am I treating my athletes in here, and who am I writing my programming for? Am I trying to take a stay-at-home mom who has no interest in going to a competition turning them into an athlete too quick? I'm not saying you can't turn them into an athlete, but are you turning them into an athlete too quick at great risk to their health? It is great risk to their health. It's just as dangerous as shitty food and everything else that's out there, or shitty coaches not taking the time to show these guys the foundational movements. And even on your advanced athletes, the one that you see that are coming in and they see the programming, you have great programming, but they decide to put themselves in the corner and do their own cherry picking programming. That shit starts to fall apart. The smart ones just turn it into steady state. That's all it is. They're just there for the fun to hang out with their friends. The ones that aren't smart will beat themselves into a fucking rampant corner and tear the shit out of themselves and then blame you for it because they're at your gym, right? So have a good, solid program for your athletes to go into, learn, be taught, right? And there's a reciprocal respect that's important in this piece too. They need to understand that you're not just talking from a place of, I want it done this way because I'm the owner. It's, I'm recommending that you do it this way for your own health and longevity. You're here at a gym for your health and longevity. Yes, it's fun. Yes, it has an energetic environment. Yes, it does all of these great, wonderful things for you, but we need to make sure that you can train healthy and strong and stay that way and continue training well into your 70s, 80s, right? I'm turning 50 this year, and this stuff is really, really hitting me hard. There's some things that I should have corrected earlier on, but I was young, just like most of you guys out there, at that same time, full of fire, and I wanted to just throw it all at my training and just become the best I possibly could. Could I have done that a little bit better? Sure, but at my particular position, I was traveling around a lot. I didn't have a lot of coaches. I'm kind of more self-taught. But that self-taught led to a lot of injuries. And a lot of injuries in my way led to a lot of learning and a lot of discovery and a lot of research so that I could help others not have to go down my path. Not only is it a good role as a coach, but as a father as well, right? We all make those mistakes and we should learn from them. That way we can help others not make those mistakes. Now, others may decide not to take your advice, but as a job, as a leader, a mentor, a coach, a father, any of those types of things, it's one of the things that we struggle with, right? Like, well, they don't listen. Well, they're not going to listen if it's just forced upon them. We need to explain it. We need to detail it. We need to show them why that the particular route that they're on might not be the best route, right? So off-season programs should be, using clocks as tools is one of those types of things during off-season. You should be using a clock as a tool, not as a motive, not as something to overdo it, right? A lot of coaches use a clock as something to get intensity out of the athletes. I've heard a lot of CrossFit coaches use that, right? They use that terminology as like, put a clock on this because you want intensity out of your athletes. Yes and no. You should be getting the intensity out of the athletes, but they should be doing work that is scaled to their ability. Scaled to their ability inside of that clocked time is going to be a lot more effective than chaotic movement inside of that clocked time. And during off-season training, that's a great time to put that in play. That way it becomes repetitive and a habit during actual season when the pressure is on, right? Then they're not thinking about it. They're already moving very well inside of 3-minute windows. They're already moving very well inside of a 90-second piece or a 5-minute piece, right? But during those off-season times, you get the opportunity to back them up, choke them up. Today I did a lot of that with my guys on suitcase lunges, things like that. Fixing movement patterns on the legs, making sure that knees are in the right position, feet are in the right position, we're standing tall in lunges. Things that you may have a clock running, right? But you want to let them know that while the clock is running, this is our work window. We're inside of this work window. I'm getting you used to hearing the buzzing, the beeping, the things like that, but there's still standards and shit that qualify, right? Off-season programs, great for that. Strict adherence to form during off-season, finding weaknesses and inefficiencies and shoring them up, right? And, I'm talking about off-season for athletes, and then I'm also going to be talking, your off-season training for your athletes is great generalist training all year round for your generalist person coming in off the street, right? Your person trying to get healthy, because your off-season athlete training for these guys is making them more robust, stronger, bulletproof, risk-averse across the board and better than sport-specific training would be doing. So keep that in mind, guys. And there's some just glaring things out there. We've evolved our program here past that of CrossFit. We view it as a sport, treat it as such. Some examples this morning. I did the 9 a.m. example, but we did another one when we ran into our first year. We did a year of our new style of programming. I had some of my top tier athletes do that programming with no CrossFit training at all. No CrossFit sports specific training at all for a year, for 1 year. And then we ran a week's worth of benchmarks, a week's worth of CrossFit benchmarks. I think Fran, Helen, a couple of those different style of CrossFit, popular CrossFit benchmarks. 1 year of not doing a single kipping pull-up. 1 year of not doing any butterflies. 1 year of not any of those types of movements, thrusters, wall balls, different things like that. 1 year of all of that type of shit, taking all the unique CrossFit pieces out of our programming and then testing it 1 year later. Across the board, my high-end athletes beat, for example, their Fran time. My wife was one of them. Karen beat her Fran time by 1 whole minute. For those of you that have done Fran, she beat her Fran time by an entire minute. It was fucking fast to begin with. And then she shaved herself down 1 minute faster. A lot of athletes experienced the same thing. We had a lot of people look at their CrossFit. That was a big indication for a lot of us that the CrossFit training of beating yourself into the ground every single day with sports-specific training wasn't the best route to take. And that a more on-season, off-season approach or a strength and conditioning style approach was a way more effective style of training. Now, I'm not going to dig into how we program here at the gym. That's something that, it's a little bit more proprietary than most, but you're more than welcome to come in here and experience that yourself. We can show you exactly what we do here at the gym, which you remember, you know what I'm talking about. But it's things that, we look at movements that are out there in the strength and conditioning field or the CrossFit field. And over the 14 years we've been in business, there are things that we used to have in the programming that we no longer have in the programming anymore because we moved past them. And what makes us make those choices? Are they making our athletes stronger and more capable? And do they have longevity, right? Running, for example. Running is an option that while I believe that running is a good basic human function, you need to know how to do it. It's a good exercise. But my risk versus reward, if I'm looking to increase somebody's work capacity in something, there are a lot of other tools that I can use that have a lower risk, higher reward than running, right? So if I want to program, and I can program these for running, I can put you on the Echo bike, right? I can do awesome, nasty fucking workouts on the Echo bike. The Echo bike in the 10 years or so that we've owned it has never hurt anybody, has an extremely low threshold for risk, never hurt anybody physically. It will hurt your pride and your ego. It will definitely make you feel like a bitch. But on the other side of it, it is making you better. It is getting your work capacity increased. Can running do that? Not near as hard as the fucking bike, right? So running, on the other hand, if we're looking at one or the other as a tool to increase work capacity, if I'm dropping my risk ratio and looking reward ratio, the bike is probably the better option. The running, okay, good for mental health, nice to get out there, bang around a little bit, but you're banging around, you're smacking up your knees, you're fucking up your elbow, your ankles, right? A lot of hard hits on the joints, different things like that. And who the fuck wants to look like a runner? So sports specific, right? So sports specific runners look terrible. They're broken down unless you're looking at sprinters, and those sprinters have off seasons that are really different than their running protocols, right? But I mean, that's a whole different subject. My point being, finding things, putting them in the programming and then removing things that don't really serve a lot of purpose, right? So if I'm looking at somebody who's carrying 150 extra fucking pounds and I'm telling them to go out and run a 200 around the building or a 100-yard sprint or something like that, it would probably be better served to put that particular person on the bike. Some would put them on the rower. Others would say the rower is a little lower risk. You're right, it's a little lower risk than the run. But the rower itself is inherent with a few pieces of risk, right? So I'm looking at things that basic brutality, low risk, hard work, right? And that's how we're programming. So that would be an example of what you're going to see here. Super heavy, single arm kettlebell type stuff, but working, odd object stuff on either side of the body, carries, things like that are really truly basic human functionality movements. Can't remember the last time I was walking down the street and saw a set of rings to get over to the other side of the street doing ring muscle ups and fucking toes to the bar. Like there's so many other things that are better served as far as programming goes. So So regardless of the goal, athlete or generalist, this style and approach to training will lead to better performance, stronger members, and a longer, healthier training experience. Shouldn't that be the overall goal, guys? At the end of the day, isn't that the overall goal? We've got to stop training to get tired, right? I keep seeing so many of these gyms, and I still have members that come in here and do this shit too. They create little workouts just to make each other tired. It's just steady state cardio. You're not really increasing your performance. You're not training to get better. You're training to get tired, for sure, but are you training to get better? And are you writing programming to make your members tired, or are you writing programming to make your members better every single day? Or are you writing programming to make yourself look like some type of scientific leader with a fucking nerd hat on, right? Like, get away from that shit. Write for your members, write for your group, write for the right reasons, right? Your programming should be approachable. It should be making your members stronger, more confident. They should have longevity. They shouldn't be hurt all the time. They shouldn't have to sit on the couch for 3 or 4 weeks nursing fucking injuries, rotator cuff injuries, muscle pulls, all these different kinds of things because your programming's terrible or you're not watching your actual coaching. So I hope you guys aren't seeing it as a big bash on CrossFit because, again, I believe that the intentions in CrossFit earlier on were more of a strength and conditioning approach. I just feel like now it's being viewed a lot differently by these 3 to 5 year affiliate owners that have been nurtured on the tit of CrossFit as a sport. So we're just going to treat CrossFit as a sport from now on. And then we're going to go back to old school, brutal strength and conditioning, which is fucking working. I have never seen lean muscle gain and body fat drop and performance increases like this before. And we've been doing this, like I said, 13, 14 years. And in the last year and a half, it's been phenomenal. Is that related to us dropping the affiliate? Not really. We were already changing 2 years before we had dropped our affiliate with CrossFit. So we were already modifying all of our stuff anyway. I saw the glaring holes, and we've decided to be different from day one. So we will always be different. We will always evolve this program. You're going to come, if you come to this gym again in 2 more years, it'll look different then too, because we're going to always be looking to enhance it, make it better, and give our members the best experience that they can possibly get. Keep them as healthy, lean, mean, strong, and capable as we can get them. And that's what we're about here at Iron Legion. So if you're looking for a place to train, if you're looking for unique workouts, you do sports-specific training, or you're just looking for general health and wellness, this is your spot, man. We can handle you both ways on both sides of the spectrum. I kind of explained some of the methodology there. I love talking about it. So if you ever want to stop in and talk, we can have a chat, and one of my favorite subjects. So maybe I'll have a little bit more podcast based on just this stuff here. But yeah, I hope you found some value in that, and hopefully be back in the next week or so with more. Out.